In this video, we'll learn how to print a Notepad++ document or create a PDF document from Notepad++ file. We'll also learn how to include line numbers, file names, time, and any other information that you would like as a header or footer. Now, since I cannot show the actual printout, I'm going to print a Notepad document into a PDF, which we can see. So here are some examples. Here I have a simple source code, a C file, which I'm printing as a PDF while keeping the syntax highlighting. Here is an example of simple black and white C file as a PDF, and here is the one without any background. And so we will go into details about all of these different options. Now, you might be looking at this video if you have searched for Notepad document printing and so on. We are going to use Notepad++. Now, Notepad++ is a much more powerful alternative to Notepad. It is free, it is open source, and it is also very lightweight like Notepad. And so if you would like to try a Notepad++, you can go to Google, search for Notepad++, and then just go to Notepad++ and download and install. It's a very simple and straightforward installation. And so let's get started to learn how we can print a Notepad or Notepad++ document into a printer or a PDF document. Now, you might wonder why we want to print a source code, because usually we don't do that. I mean, if I look back, I haven't printed many source code in last few years, and so you might wonder, why do we really even need to print our source code? But there might be some cases where you may want to print out your source code. So let's take a look at some of those. Now, if you're working and if you're filing for copyright or for intellectual property protection for the source code, you may have to print out or even just put your source code in a PDF for filing for copyrights or intellectual property protection and so on. So your lawyers may ask you to do that. So that might be definitely a case where you may want to sort of print your source code. Maybe there are times where you're looking at a very complex piece of code, and just if you would like to take a really close look at it, you may want to just print it out and then just be offline and trying to figure out the code. There might be a time where someone else is peer reviewing your source code, and probably they would like to see it in a paper. Often, if you're really stuck at a particular code, it might be worth try to just be offline and trying to debug that code. Or maybe there are times where you would like to just archive some of the source code and you just want to print it out and then keep it in a safe storage. Now, we used to do that a few years ago. Now, I don't know, we don't do that as often, but I'm sure if you look at some of the old piece of code in your company or in your workplace, you may find some of those source code printed back in the days. And so, yeah, while it might not be a very common thing to do, but it is always good to learn or to know how to print it out, your source code in Notepad++ if there is a need. Now, you might wonder, where did I get this video topic idea? It actually came as a question from one of the viewer from my video, and he was wondering how to set up Notepad++ for printing it out, especially since he had a dark theme and he was not able to get the right colors. And so that made me think to make this video. And so feel free to ask me any question regarding Notepad++, and I'll do my best to answer in a comment, or even if I can make a video tutorial for that, I will do that. Right, so that was a quick introduction, not so quick, but so let's see actually how we can print source code in Notepad++. Right, so there are some really neat features when it comes to actually printing source code, and so we'll take a look at it. Look at those one by one. So let me open Notepad++. So here I have Notepad++ open, and I have a number of files that are open, some HTML, some C code, and so on. And so to print out any of these, it's very simple. You just go to File and go to Print, and then just pick your printer and then print it out. Now, since I cannot show you the actual printout, I'm going to print them as a PDF, and then we'll take a look at the output of PDF. And that might be a good idea even as you print out your source code, first to print it as a PDF, look at the output, and then once you're happy with the output, then you can print out that PDF, right? And so you don't waste a paper if it doesn't show as you intend to. So I'm going to save it as a PDF. So I'm going to save this PDF into cdev and test1. Okay. All right. So it should have copied it. I'm going to open that. All right. So this is the PDF. So let me open this. And so it did print out, but it looks kind of interesting. The original source code was like this, and this is what I get. And so where are these settings for the printouts? So let's take those one by one. And so the very first thing that we can set up is we can set up a print numbers. And so let's open Notepad++, go to settings, go to preferences, and we have an option for a print. So if you look at the this sidebar and click on the print, you have a number of options here. And so the very first is print line numbers. And so if you would like to have a line numbers in your printout or in your PDF, you can check this box. And so since I had that, I can see the print number or the line numbers right here. Okay. If you don't like, you can remove that. Now the next part is this color options. And so there are a number of options here. The very first is this, and you might be already familiar with this. This is basically what you see is what you get. So what you see is just an acronym for that. And so let's pick that, and then let's click close. And I'm going to print this out once more in another PDF. And I'm going to call this what you see is what you get. Okay, so it should have created a new PDF. So let's open that. And as you can see, it exactly replicates how you see it in this window. By the way, I'm using a dark mode in Notepad++. And if you would like to learn more about how to set dark mode in Notepad++, please check out the video. I'm going to link somewhere here. And so click on that and you will be able to see that video. And so you can see that when I just set the mode as what you see is what you get, it exactly replicates how you see it in your Notepad++ in the PDF. Okay, so that is the option. So let's go to the next option. Go to settings, preferences. This time we are going to invert this. So all the colors will be inverted. So let's pick that. Click close and go to print, PDF, and we will say invert. Okay. And while we are here, let's check the other two also, and then we'll look at all of them one by one. So black on white is basically no matter what theme you have. Let's say you have a printer that is a monochrome or a black and white printer, and so all these color doesn't really matter in that case. And so in such case, you can just say, black ink on a white piece of paper. And so I'm going to set this option, click close, and I'm going to print this out. And I'm going to call this black on white, right? And then finally, if we go back to settings again, and if we set no background color, let's try that. Okay, so let's look at all these PDFs. And so we looked at, what you see is what you get. We also looked at, well, actually, let's look at this invert. And so the invert actually inverts the color that you had set in your Notepad++. And so there may be a time where you would like to invert the colors. For me, it doesn't look pretty good. So let's look at the next one, which is black on white. And so this one removes all the color settings, and you can just see it nicely in a white background and a black ink. And so this is by far the simplest and I think pretty good looking PDFs. Let's look at no background. and so it actually removed the background, as you can see from here. But then because this background is changed, some of these colors are not as obvious as it should be, and so that is sometimes an issue when you are trying to print this out. And so depending upon how you set your theme in Notepad++, this can change. And so you may have to, as I said earlier, you may have to try and trial and error and find out the best print PDF format that you would like, and then once you get that, then you can keep that settings. Now if you look at this PDF, actually let's go back to black and white because that is the most cleanest. When you look at this, actually there are some headers, and then there are also some footer information. And so if you look at here, the header has the name of the file right here, and then it also has the time, and then right at the bottom in the footer section there is a page number. You can see page number 1, page number 2, and onwards, right? And so how do you set those? And so if you go back to settings, go to preferences, and this time let's look at this header and footer option. And so it gives you a lot of options actually. So you can set different variables or different set of information to be printed on the paper in the header and footer section. So on header section you have 3 options: on the left side, on the middle, and on the right hand side. And the same thing applies for the footer section also. Now you can even change the fonts and the font name, and then whether it's a bold or italic and so on. So let's try that. We will set the file name. I'll remove this, and then let's put it right in the middle. So I'll select this text box, I'll go here, and then I'll just click a file name and click add. And so you can see that this is just a variable that tells Notepad++ when it tries to print out in a PDF or actual print, that it should put the actual file name right in the middle of the header. Okay, so here we have a time, so let's change that. Let's not put any time, maybe we'll put it at the footer section. So right here on the right hand side I'm going to set my time, and then I'm going to click add, and you can see it right here. And then if you want to print out the print numbers, let's put it right here. So on the footer section on the left hand side we can just set a page number, and so click add, and now we have sort of customized our printout. Okay, if you want we can even change these settings. So let's actually make both of them italic. Okay, header and footer section both. So now that we have all of our settings set for header and footer, let's also change this to black on white because that's by far the cleanest look. So click close. I'm going to go to file, print, PDF, and I'm going to say it custom print. Okay, and click save. And let's go back and let's open this one. So now you can see that because we set our header and footer section, you can see that this is the file name and it is italic, as you remember we set that up. And then in the footer section on the left hand side we have a page number, on the right hand side we have the date or the time. You can even set a date and a long form or a short form. So there are a number of settings. You can even put your own custom name. Actually we didn't do that. Let's try that actually. So I'll go back, go to settings, and let's see, I want to say just some name of the document that probably you would like to put it. Now you have to be careful because this is a common setting, so it will show up on all your printouts. So make sure that you only set these when you want to. Alright, so let's make this probably bold. Click close. Let's try to print. And this time we'll say my custom print with name. Okay, and so let's open this and see what happened. And so in the footer section right in the middle you can see that the name also appears, and all the footer information is in bold because we set that up. And so as As you look at these print options, there are really a lot of options available to really customize your printout or a PDF. Now the final thing is a font size. So many times when you are trying to print out a particular piece of code, maybe you have zoomed into your source code. And so let's go back here, and if you know, you can press Control and a middle scroll wheel to zoom in or zoom out. So let's say I zoomed into this particular piece of code, and let's say I'm going to do a print. Okay, so let's make it really big, and I'm going to go to File, Print, and then I'm going to just give a name, font size big. Okay, and let's go and take a look at that. So font size big right here. So what happened here is, even though I had my source code zoomed quite a bit, when I looked at the PDF, it actually is always the same font size. So if I put it side by side, you will see that it's much smaller than what we have set it. And so that tells me that the font settings are done from somewhere else, right? And so that is what we need to remember, that because you can zoom in, zoom out, when we print something from Notepad++, it actually looks at the default font setting. And so in order to change our font settings, you need to go to Settings and go to Style Configurator, and you need to take a look at what your font name and what is your default font size. So I'm going to change the font name. Console As is a pretty common, famous monospace font. By the way, if you would like to learn more about it, I'm going to link the font settings video here, so make sure you check that out. But let's change this to something else. So I'm going to change it to Courier New, and I'm going to change this font settings to really small. Let's say maybe 7. Okay, so now I have set my font to different size and different font family. Make sure that you set these two checkbox, which will enable a global font and global font size, so that takes into account, right? So we set our font name, we set our font size, and then let's save this. Again, I'm going to zoom this, and I'm going to File, go to Print, and then let's try to print. And just so that we know, this will be font Courier New, and then the font size was 7. So let's save, and let's take a look at it. So you can see the difference. This was when we had a Console As was the name of the font, and then the font size was, I think, 10 or 11. This one is a font named Courier New, which is also a pretty common font, and then the font size was 7. And so just to understand, Notepad++, when it tries to print, it always looks at your settings, style configurator, and this information. And so I'm going to change one more time to a different font. It's called Ubuntu Mono. It's a pretty nice looking font, by the way. And then let's set it to 10. Click Save. And as I said, don't worry about how it looks here, because it's going to look at what we set it up right here. Okay. And so I'm going to go to File, Print, and then let's just print this out. Okay. Save. And let's open that. So you can see that now the fonts are a little bigger. This is from the font called Ubuntu Mono. That is also a free monospace font, which looks pretty good. Alright, so let's go back to our documentation. And so we looked at the different ways to customize our printouts. We also looked why there might be a time where you would like to actually print out the source code. So finally, before you guys leave, make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you like this content. I post new videos about Notepad++ and then just a general tips and tricks to make you a better programmer. So if you like the content of this video, make sure that you subscribe and also click on the bell icon so that you get notified I also have number of playlists created in my channel so that you can learn more about Notepad++. Alright, so I hope you like this video or learn something new about Notepad++ printout. And finally, make sure that you check out the video that I'm going to link at the end of this video. It's about some of the tips and tricks regarding Notepad++. So I hope you like this video. If you did, please click on the like button. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.